What's up, everybody? So I hope you guys are in the mood for some scaling, specifically Bleach, because today I'll be covering the Aizen and Ichigo clash. Of course, this will be Dangai Ichigo. And then I will also be covering the Kenpachi Meteor Bust. Two amazing feats that stand out, at least they really stand out to me in Bleach. They're not the strongest feats, they don't scale to the highest ends or anything. However, they give very, very good scalability to everything above them because they are some of the most impressive feats. They're just not during the time where the characters are at their strongest, by a long shot, mind you. One thing to get out of the way, of course, is for those who are new, I will be breaking this down specifically to the AP as well, though I will cover the totality of the energy yields themselves. I'll give you those numbers. I will additionally be doing some high ends and low ends, especially with Bleach. It needs it because Bleach is always very, very weird when it comes to how much stronger a thing gets. It's not a very concise series when it comes to that. But low ends and high ends kind of fixes that. And the last thing to cover is the sizes of things. Holy crap. Kubo does not draw to, he's very inconsistent when he draws. He might be worse than Togashi. Let's cover the very first feat. So with the first feat, we can see it right here, where you see the pixel scaling behind it. Now, if you saw my last video, you'll know why I would not actually take this pixel scaling. I wanted to bring it up so I could address this. This comes off as very faulty. Now, the thing is again, when you compare the size of a person, especially when you're trying to count their pixels and such, to the size of something astronomically larger than them, you get things like this that on surface might look okay. Now, they did try to make it better by comparing Ichigo's size to the bushes, even though there's nothing guaranteeing that the bushes are, they keep the same size as each other, and then getting a bush that's closer to it. I understand, but look, here's pictures like this forced perspective here, right? This is what forced perspective is. And you can get astronomically different views of people. Is she an actual giant? Of course not. It's just simply, this is what it looks like for somebody to be much, much closer. Now, if you see with Ichigo, he's actually a lot closer. There's multiple rocks. If you're gonna say that mountain, hill, whatever, I mean, this goes into the hill buster meme with it, but it really isn't the size of a mountain, but we'll get to that. Point being though, is that Ichigo is quite a bit closer to us than we are to that hill. And it just doesn't make sense to pixel scale. Now, the one thing that is fair, however, is to compare those green lines. That is because those are happening within the same depth. It's impossible for those to be mixed matched, right? You're comparing the same size thing to itself, essentially. That is fine. That's totally okay. That is pixel scaling that I would take. So that's why I wanted to show this picture, because it kind of highlights where I'm going with the pixel scaling. And so when we go forward, we kind of want to get an idea, okay, so how tall is it then? Well, you need to be careful here because we aren't trying to find out how tall the whole thing is. We're trying to find out how tall the destruction of what was destroyed was, right? You can see again with the green line how tall it goes. That's what we're measuring. That's the height, not the entirety of the rock construct, right? So we have a few more pictures here where we can kind of get an idea of what we could expect with a person next to an object. Now, I've seen people pixel scale this down to 30 meters tall. The destruction, mind you, not the whole thing, but 30 meters tall. And you can see this here, it's 30 meters tall, compared to the people kind of to the left. Now, to be fair, they're not placed where Ichigo is, but I'm just showing some pictures to give you an idea. I couldn't get a proper exact, situation like Ichigo is. And be mindful again, Ichigo actually is further to us where there's multiple rock structures in between him and the actual rock structure that gets obliterated, right? Now, point is it 30 meters tall compared to him and that, and what would actually be destroyed? This is not fair, even though pixel scaling could get you down to 30 meters. What's more, how about 60 meters? Okay, remember that forced perspective? So now we have a person. I'm gonna really show you what it means to have somebody a different perspective just simply off of being close or further away. This is why Sensui when he's, yes, I'm going to Yu Hakusho. Sensui compared to like Beheaded Hill. Whoa, he's massive. It's like, that's just not how it is. If he was to actually be landed on Beheaded Hill, you know, he would be a dot. You wouldn't even see him. And we can get ideas with that because look in this picture here. Now the Leaning Tower of Pisa is 60 meters. And if you see the guy first and forefront, like in the picture, he's next to like the trash can in terms of like closeness to us. That trash can must be huge, right? Or worse, compare him to the people all the way to the left. You can see them. Those people are like maybe a third in volume compared to him from our perspective, right? That's just minute, the teeny tiniest amount of perspective difference in like distance between him and those people to the left of this picture, and yet he is vastly bigger than those people, or even that trash can is bigger than him, right? From our perspective, if you were to move the trash can on top of him, right, or you were to make them share the same space but not shrink the trash can down to his size based on moving it back. Anyways, you get the idea here. A very fair estimate of the size of the hill that's destroyed. It never gets to mountain sized, okay? All said and done, comes out to, on a low end or high end, we can get to about 52.5 meters on a low end to 71.5 meters in a high end. Again, this is just the destroyed value, that line that goes up, the green line. This is not the totality of everything. However, we're not measuring what's not destroyed, okay? This is based on some of the different pictures we can see here. We have things like this here, Mount Britain, and Florida. Florida it has one of the smallest, say, mountains, so to speak, but it's really hills. But you can get an idea, if you were to place Ichigo on this picture, right, you could even place him in a picture on like that second bump next to the truck and compare him to the actual total height of the land off in the distance. And if we were to compare, we can get an idea. It gets decently sized, like it gets pretty appropriately sized compared to what Ichigo would be destroying with the air pressure, because he still has a long distance to the height of that land from where he would be if he was near that truck, for example, right? Because we, from our perspective, we aren't viewing Ichigo like right next to us. We'd be viewing him like he was at that truck, for example. So we could take that and apply it. We could also take something like Les Platon's mountain, where Ichigo, so if we wanted to get the height of like a normal human, we have a gate there, right? We can see an actual gate. And we know that humans generally are above the size of gates, no less, but we can get a kind of an idea. He's not chopping down something this size, but this would be the high end. Perhaps you could argue that the total height of what you can see here is just merely the green line going above, and that's what's destroyed. So this is going to be the low ends and high ends. Again, those numbers are on the low end 52.5 meters, high end 71.5 meters. And the length is approximately 50% longer than the height of the destruction. This comes from, again, the two green lines, which is fair to use when we are actually applying pixel scale and giving it to its own size. So we can actually get a very fair idea of the height and length to get the full volume of the hill using a calc from, of course, different sites and such. And what we can get here is, on a low end, approximately 246,884 meters cubed, up to 623,638 meters cubed on the high end, approximately triple. Now, all said and done, because I don't want this to be huge, crazy videos, I just really want to show the force perspective. What is this clash coming out to? Well, if you are wondering, here's the answer. No need to, keep you guys waiting. With the total joules of energy, I'll just have it on the actual screen so I don't have to keep saying it. You can see here that it comes out to a mid-end small city level of joules of energy. On the high end, it comes out to this many joules, which comes out to the higher end of still small city level. That is correct. It is coming out to enough joules to completely annihilate a small city on mid-end to a still small city on a higher end, approaching an average city-size amount of space or matter. Now, to be clear, I did use this based on vaporization numbers, given there's not even dust left. However, there is one more thing to take note of. This was just air pressure. Yeah, this was just air pressure, and air pressure is easily thousands of times weaker than the actual full contact swing. At 1,000 times more joules of energy, assuming, on the full contact. This brings it all the way up to, on the absolute lowest end, at minimum, island levels of joules, okay? And on the highest end, it still is just on a low end of islands level of joules. You have to understand that it becomes not just multiplicative, but actually exponential. I know if you've been here long enough, you've heard that word enough, but it really does. You are looking at to the 10th power, like scientific notations of power, to try and jump from anything to anything else. So it would still be within just the low ends of island levels, whether you go low end or high end numbers here. But still, that means the total joules are going to the low end of island level off of just that bit, that half being vaporized off of air pressure. Mind you, this is assuming full contact now. But let's get this down to the joules of energy, down to the cubic centimeter. We are going to the AP now, down to the cubic centimeter. If you break it down to the cubic centimeter, now you can see that we are looking at this many joules here that you'll see. And this comes out to a high end of small towns level of joules, fit compactly within each and every cubic centimeter of space within that blade. This makes for an insanely potent blade, right? Let alone his actual Mugetsu, for instance. That's right, this isn't even close to his strongest attack. This was casual. And to make it clear, this isn't a big attack. This, of course, came down to his air pressure, but this is all confined into his blade. Listen, when I talk about potency, again, the reason it's down to the cubic centimeter at this point is so that I can compare to other feats like Goki, or if I compare later to down to the cubic centimeter of, say, Naruto with his Rasen Shuriken or something, right? Just to make it all concise. But I want to make it clear, his actual island level potency is assuming he hits you with his entire blade. But that can actually happen. Most people will be big enough that the blade of his sword will actually be able to transfer the entire energy, meaning on average, he is hitting with island level potency, okay? Low end, mind you. And this is just Dangai Ichigo, casual swings, let alone Mugetsu. Now, if you have an idea there, let's move on to Kenpachi's Meteor feat. This is a big one of my favorite feats from Bleach. Kenpachi's one of my favorites. To get an idea on the actual size of that meteor, there's one big problem though, and that is, how big is Serite? And there's not a lot of agreement. I went through and looked at a lot, okay? I looked at all the evidence that a lot of people could present, as well as the actual manga itself, and it does kind of confirm a thing that I had already been feeling on my own about it. You already know, you already know that how I am with statements, that they need feats and scaling to back them up. That is for the purpose of being as accurate and consistent as possible. And we have multitude of shots and descriptions that go against and show a very concise and accurate, much more consistent, definitely more consistent depiction of Serite than the 10 days walk thing, okay? And that's the problem. So, if you wanted Serite and the meteor to be measured out to something the size of a country, that's just not happening. Because on this channel, I prefer to go for what I consider to be the most accurate and consistent take on things. It could be the size of a country. It very well could be, but it's at least what I'm going to say it is, okay? It might be higher, but what I'm saying is it is at least what I'm about to say. And what I'm about to say is backed by feats and scaling, unlike if we wanted to claim that it was about the size of a country, about the size of Texas or any other crazy height. Even people who take the 10 days walk thing get vastly different numbers, okay? But if we actually look at all of the pictures, and all of the different sizes consistently, if we want to look at Serete, let's get a quick rundown. We can get an idea here of the actual size of like the gate. We have here, like this guy is massive. He makes normal sized humans like really tiny compared to him. But if you get the idea of like the size of a human, he's not some like skyscraper, okay? He's not even close to a skyscraper, and we can see him compared to the gates, or yeah, to the gate, or like the walls themselves. Okay, this isn't some crazy Attack on Titan thing going on here, okay? And additionally, we can see in a multitude of different shots just how big Serete is from like multiple different angles. Additionally, we can also see that Serete is considered like just the city and not the lands that surround it. That is different. Now, when we're actually looking at the sizes of things within it, because we can again see the pictures where we can get a whole idea, like a holistic idea on the size of what's the actual Serete itself, not just what's on the outside, the outskirts of it. We do also within it, get an idea that the buildings can be massive, hundreds of meters tall, with Kenpachi easily cutting them up, very easily, mind you. But like, we can get an idea of the size, but nothing suggests like 10-day walk from every single panel. Now, there's also some pictures where it's like you can see mountains in the background, and you can see mountains in the background, but it is odd that you can never see, like, we can never see where those mountains actually begin, right? And the one thing that we do see mountains in when we actually see an out view, like a zoomed out view of everything, is that there are mountains that exist outside of the walls, not within the walls, okay? There's just so many things that go against it being the size of even Texas or anything. And I've looked at a bunch. I've looked at many different scans compared against many different calcs that people have tried to do, and I came up with a pretty good idea on where I could actually realistically place as a low end to a high end. What we're going to compare it to is actually some of the biggest cities in America. And the reason I'm doing this is because the size of those buildings are still massive. And if you want to still push back, but wait, it can't be that far, that small. Look, it needs to be way larger than that. Screw the 10 days thing. We do have proof, because it needs to fit the souls of all the dead. It doesn't though. I did look into everything. If this was something to back it up, I would really consider changing it. Perhaps, there could be more to it. If we could, additionally, aside from just a statement, but like really see, like, man, they really do have to confine every single dead person that has ever died. But that's not even true. That's just simply not true. There's actually a balance between like the souls that pass and go from like Soul Society, which isn't just Serete, mind you, but like Soul Society and the actual living world. And there's a balance. There's just nothing that suggests even close that they actually have to all live there in Soul Society, all of it. Again, let alone just Serete, which is what the meteor is compared to. And then more, we can also see that like Mayuri here kills thousands of the souls, okay, just to keep a balance. So we know that the souls can be gotten rid of. There is nothing to suggest that every single person who has ever died, all the souls in all of existence, are confined into Soul Society. It just isn't borne out in feats. In fact, it is disproven. So, what we can go off of is consistent, because consistency, I say accuracy and consistency, but consistency builds upon accuracy. It builds a case for accuracy. And it is consistently shown to be a very large city, okay? Most accurately represented as such. So I will take a low end of a very large city and a high end of still a very large city. Okay, hopefully you get where I'm coming from on this. If you don't, that's too bad. Moving on the low end, we have something as big as 560 kilometers squared in area, up to something as much as 1,935 kilometers squared in area. So both are large. With the low end, I'm using like Columbus, Georgia. And on the high end, I'm using like Jacksonville, Florida, okay? Jacksonville being like the largest unless you go to Alaska. Alaska doesn't count. Anyways. Look, let's get into the actual meat of the feat. With these numbers, we can actually get an idea, using again another site. The diameter of Serete comes out to approximately 26,702 meters on low end, up to 49,500 meters on the high end, giving us a volume of this many meters cubed on the low end, or this many meters cubed on the high end. Okay? Now we have our numbers for some volume. Given that the meter scales no more than a third of Serete in total volume, I will also do a low end to high end on this because other depictions show it might even be as small, even smaller perhaps, than a quarter the size and the volume as Serete, depending on the shot. So I will do a 25% or a quarter to 33.3 repeating percent or a third in volume of Serete as the meteor to get an idea. This comes out to these numbers here. We have the low end to the high end, low end to the high end, depending on 25% to 33% of the low end or high end of the volume of Serete, okay? So here are the numbers in volume. Now, when we actually take the joules from the volume to actually destroy, the meteor the way he did, the amount I used for joules of energy here, this wasn't vaporization, this was instead heavy fragmentation. And that is multiple times weaker than vaporization, but he does destroy something far, far bigger. But let's look at it here. His actual joules of energy, I'll do the same and post the numbers here. You can see the lowest end to the highest end. And this comes out from the lowest end going up from a high end of island level to a low end of large island level, with the higher yields coming out to mid-end large island level up to mid-end large island level. Again, at a certain point, you aren't passing into a higher bracket. So here's what we're looking at for the totality joules of Kenpachi's, essentially what he can put behind his sword, if you want to even call that thing a sword. It's massive. But it's not so massive that we're looking at like massive explosions either. It is still smaller than him in total volume. Because, of course, it's skinny as hell if you're breaking it down to a blade, okay? It's just massive for a blade. But it's actually more impressive here. This is Kenpachi in Shikai, yeah. However, but with his eye patch on. Now, I did another low end, high end here, and I'm not doing a low end to a high. I just did the absolute lowest to the absolute highest, okay? On a low end, if we assume that the eye patch limits him to 2 times increase, which is borne out in feats, okay? I'm very confident in this, that it is at least a 2 times increase when he takes that eye patch off, given everything he does from eye patch to no eye patch. This brings him up to this amount of joules of energy, or on the low end of large island level, okay? However, on the high end, let's assume that it limits him in the same way that they have, like those limiters when they go to the living world, and that it limits him down to 20%. If we were to take that, and I'm not so confident on this one, but if this is the high end, this is a 5 times increase, or this many joules coming out to mid-end small country level of joules. Is this what you expected? Because sadly, I was really expecting something a lot higher. But to be fair, we haven't broken it down to AP. And when we break it down to the cubic centimeter, albeit his sword is coming out to, at minimum, 205 centimeters in height, the length and the width, all of it comes out to a big ass sword. I could give you the volume. It's approximately, all of these are approximate numbers, okay? But it is approximately about 71,163.03 centimeters cubed. of volume. In total, when we get the joules down to the centimeter cubed in an attack, this is coming around this many joules, or low-end small city level joules, compacted into every cubic centimeter of space. That is on the lowest low end. Now, for the higher ends, at the highest, we see this many joules, or low-end actual mid-city level, down to every single cubic centimeter. That means that this is many multiple magnitudes above Dangai Ichigo's casual swing, even with the fact that it wasn't with air pressure, and that it was with a sword much bigger. But again, that's with eye patch Kenpachi. Let's look at Kenpachi without his eye patch. Going off the same numbers as before, we can see this number here at a 2 times increase on the low end. That puts him at the weakest at mid small city level, broken down to the absolute lowest, down to the cubic centimeter in potency. And at the highest end, if we were taking a 5 times multiplier, or he is down to only 20% of his true power with that eye patch, he comes out to this much energy, and he's hit a whole new bracket here, to where now he is at low average city level. He's no longer at the mid small city, but at the low end of baseline, like average city level, down to the cubic centimeter. To give you an idea here, I'm talking about looking at, so we can see this here again, this mountain compared to a city, right? Look at something the size of, okay, it would be smaller than Columbus, Georgia, but like maybe a picture like this here, where you have an average city in size. Consider that he has the total energy required with his eye patch off. He has the energy required to annihilate all of it within every cubic centimeter of space, making up the total mass of the sword that he's hitting with. That is an eye patchless Shikai Kenpachi at this point of the story, no less. He of course gets stronger. That is his potency. So I hope you really enjoyed this video, because that's where it ends off. I'll be able to hit other feats. There's plenty of other feats. I mean, I could have even done like Aizen's Fragger or any other given feats with Bleach. And of course, other different series, but these videos aren't meant to be extremely long, and hopefully you get an idea. And I will start tier listing, so I'm probably going to do one more series, one more couple of feats, and then I will start tier listing them, and that should be fun. You'll get an idea just where like Shikai eye patchless Kenpachi is, or Dangai Ichigo casual swing is, compared to, and of course, to be fair to Dangai Ichigo, I didn't do Mugetsu, right? So I would love to start actually tier listing these. Should be really fun. And yeah, I already have an idea for the next feats I want, but still send me more feats you guys would love to see, because I can start pumping these videos out a lot quicker than past videos. Alright, if you like the video, then, yeah, give it that thumbs up. You know what to do. It's like, comment, subscribe. All of it really helps the channel grow, and that really means a lot, because it can help me push towards being able to do this more full-time. But anyways, have a good day, and peace.
Pastor.